So we are holding in Tractate Menachot, page Samechtet 69, A1. This chapter is called Rabbi Ishmael. Rabbi Ishmael, that's the name of the chapter. Bikurim lefeiro kamrinan. We mean a first offering with regards to the produce. They come to permit lemizbeach kamrinan. The Moshe says, no, we mean that it must be a first offering with regards to the altar. That's how we ended off yesterday. And in the case suggested above, the altar has already partaken from this year's produce by the time the shtei halechem are offered. Hence, even if the shtei halechem can permit out of sequence, so we said first shtei halechem and then the omer, which usually is supposed to be first the omer and then shtei halechem, there's still no case in which there can be a first offering if the omer comes from wheat. Again, there's still no case in which they can be first offering if the omer comes from wheat.
Omer is from barley,
yeah? Yeah, and it says in number 2, there is no indication that this brisa, from this brisa, there is no indication as to whether the shtei halechem permit out of sequence. Boy Rabbi Bar Chama. Ram Bar Chama inquired, shtei halechem hanotzo sharion, do they permit fruit for bikurim from the point of hanotzo or hanotzo sharion? So this is stages of the growth of the growth of the harvest, the growth of the grains. So we'll soon obviously see exactly the translation of it. The Gemara says, "Mai hanotzo, mai chanotto." What is the meaning of the word hanotzo, and what is the meaning of the word chanotto? If you say he speaks of hanotzo, of the fruit, and chanotto, of the fruit, it is problematic. Hashta shrosha sharia. For if the offering permits for the temple use even what has just taken root, in the case of grain, hanotzo v'chanotto mibayo, is there any question that it permits what has undergone hanotzo and chanotto in the case of fruit? So what does that mean, hanotzo and chanotto? The Gemara says, el hanotzo de'ola v'chanotto de'ola. Rather, Ram Bar Chama inquiry must pertain to the hanotzo of the leaf and the chanotto of the leaf, which precedes the emergence of the fruit. It's like the, let's say in English, I think maybe the blooming part of the growth, the original, how it starts, budding, the budding part of the, before it grows, there is you see the flower, right? Before the fruit comes out, there's a flower. Before the flower comes out, there's a little, it's called the budding.
Seed.
It's almost like a seed. It looks like a, so you look at the number 4, it explains it. Hanotzo and chanotto, notes 4. Hanotzo and chanotto are early stages in the emergence and development of a fruit. Chanotto is slightly later. Hanotzo is earlier, when the fruit is more developed. These terms can also refer to the emergence of the leaves, as we shall see below. Ram Bar Chama inquires as to how developed a fruit must be at the time of shtei halechem are brought in order to become permitted by them. So shtei halechem is affecting the fruit, but at to what stage? At how early? Chanotto is the later stage, and hanotzo is the earlier stage. So Ram Bar Chama wants to know if I'm bringing this offering, these 2 loaves of bread and Shavuos, if it's going to affect even these fruits that they didn't even at their early stages. They didn't start growing yet. Only thing that grew was this hanotzo and chanotto. the early stages, showing some kinds of signs that something is happening. As the Braisa will teach on at 84b, fruit may not be brought as bikurim before they are permitted for temple use by the Shtei HaLechem. So the Shtei HaLechem has to permit them in order for them to come for the Omer. When is the Shtei HaLechem brought? Shavuos. Shavuos is the month of Sivan. Yeah. Right? In the English month, it would probably be June or July. June, probably. May, June. Pesach is April.
June.
June. So it has to start, right? Shtei HaLechem has to permit it, and then so I should be able to bring it on Pesach. So that gives it another 7-8 months to grow and to be ready for the Omer.
The next year,
yeah. It says in number 5, Rashi does not clearly define the difference between the Hanatza and Chanata of fruit. Elsewhere, Rashi identifies Chanata as when the blossom falls off. And the flower falls off, and then the fruit starts to grow. At this stage, the ball of the fruit is recognized and distinct. In the case of grapes, the tiny ball of fruit is known as smadar. Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, use this word smadar, referring to the early stages of the growth of grapes. Yeah. Or we see over here another example, also nitzo. The equivalent is regard to grapes is called also nitzo, vayotzetzitz. Also expressions for early stages of growth. Although related the word hanatza, these phrases refer to the end of the hanatza stage, when the flower falls off and the hanatza stage begins. The end of hanatza, so the flower is falling off, and then it starts off with the stage of hanatza, the next stage. So the Gemara, so Ram Bar Chama made an inquiry. What is a Shtei HaLechem? Hanatza sharon or Chanata sharon? Does it cover hanatza? Does it cover? Do they permit fruit for bikurim from the point of hanatza or from the point of chanata? So there's now the Gemara says, what is hanatza? What is chanata? So if you would say that it's referring to the fruit, if you say he speaks of the hanatza of the fruit and chanata of the fruit, it is problematic. Why? For if the offering permits for temple, even for the temple use, even what has just taken root in the case of grain, Ashosha, just by taking root, we're saying it's already taking care of it. The Shtei HaLechem would include it in as permitting it. Hanotza v'chanota mibaya. Is there any question about the hanotza and chanota? If Shtei HaLechem is taking care of the roots, how much more so that it takes care of the blossoming process, or the blooming process?
What is the meaning of taking care?
Meaning that it permits it. So in order for us to use it as the Omer, the first fruit, it has the Shtei HaLechem makes it permissible.
Okay.
If not, then it doesn't belong to that period, to that season.
Only next year.
Right. It would belong to the next season.
So
I'm giving the Shtei HaLechem. What is the Omer doing? Also similarly, Shtei HaLechem, you bring the Omer and it permits the grain to eat. The new grain, you're not allowed to eat the new grain until you're giving the Omer.
Okay.
So similarly, the same idea with Shtei HaLechem. You bring the Shtei HaLechem and then it permits.
You have to check how is your fruit growing.
Yeah, well, and then it says, okay, this batch or this part of the field is connected with this season, and therefore it's going to be included in the new fruit or the new grain, the new harvest, the new crop, or not. So it depends on what stage it is in the growth. So the Rambam Bar Chama said, what difference does it make what stage? Seemingly, what difference does it make what stage if we follow the hashrasha is any plant that takes roots. It's already included. If it takes root, it's already included,
Maybe
which
not.
is much earlier stage than the blossoming time.
And I don't know too much about farming, but I feel like it would be easier to physically be able to tell the budding and the flowering stage than the roots, which is on the ground. Like, how can you tell it already took roots?
But you can see if it starts to kick in.
What
So if it started to
what
grow,
about a
right?
carrot? You don't see, you just see the thing, and the roots is the fruit.
Right, so it's hard to see the roots sometimes, but the budding is like it's obvious.
No, but you can see the flower is starting to grow. You know, it taking roots.
Roots. Oh,
And-
it wouldn't grow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ela hanotzo de'ola v'chanotto de'ola. Rather, hanotzo of the leaf and chanotto of the leaf, which precede the emergence of the fruit. His question, that was his question. Mi ave ki hashrosha, is hanotzo of a fruit's leaf comparable to grain taking root, and therefore sufficient for the shtei alechem to take effect on it and render its fruit permissible for temple use, or it is not comparable to grain taking root, hence a fruit would not become permitted for temple use unless its leaf emerged to the point of hanatza before the shtei halechem were offered. Okay? The Gemara ends off with Teku. There's no answer to this question. Tishbi yetaretz kushya suvayis. Prophet Elijah will come to take care of this question. Before presenting Ram Bar Chama's remaining two inquiries, the Gemara interjects an inquiry similar to the one just discussed. Boi Rava bar Rav Chanan inquired, Chitin shezoran bakarka, wheat kernels that were planted in the ground. Oimer matiron or ein oimer matiron? Does the Omer permit them for consumption, or does the Omer not permit them for consumption? In other words, they are part of the Chadash, the new grain, or they're not part of the new grain. The Gemara says, Hey Chidami. The Gemara is perplexed by the inquiry. The Gemara says, what is the case about which we inquired? Ram Varchama, if it is where the kernels have already taken root before the Omer is offered. Tanina, by the way, it's easy to tell because if you put a seed in the ground, you have a few days for it to start taking root. I've made an experiment with my kids. Usually people buy plants that are already grown plants. But if you want to take seeds and plant them, it's not good to just plant them straight in the ground. You have to plant them first in a small cup. And so they sell these, Home Depot, different places, they sell these things. It looks like this, like a small things. You put water in it and it swells up, and then you put the seed in there and you cover it. So it gives it a perfect, environment to grow. And within 3 days, I could not believe it. The whole thing was loaded with roots and leaves and just,
it's a miracle.
yeah.
This is a miracle.
Unbelievable. I'm telling you, it was growing. I just put it in the garage. I came and it was the way they tell you to do it. Put it like this, like a tray, and on top of it there's a cover to the tray. So the leaves were so big that they were already pushing on the tray. It's like the top was the lid was blocking it from growing. Growing so fast.
But if it happened so fast, how come no one brings up the actual planting part? Like, don't you know?
They did. That was his inquiry. He says wheat kernels that were planted in the ground,
gotcha.
right? Does the Omer permit them for consumption or does not permit them for consumption? The Gemara says, what is the case? If where the kernels have already taken root before the Omer is offered, Tanina, we have learned the law in the Mishnah that once it takes root, it covers it. And if it is not, and if it is in a case where the kernels have not yet taken root, Tanina, we have also learned in we also learned this law in the Mishnah. That none, but we have learned in the Mishnah, if they took root before the Omer, and the Omer permits them for consumption. And if not, they are forbidden until the next Omer comes. What then is Rava Bar Chalina question? So they were perplexed. What is your question? If they took root, we already learned. If they didn't, we also learned that they're not good. You have to wait till the next Omer.
Yeah.
Having shown that the inquiry cannot be about what grows from the planted kernels, the Gemara explains the inquiry to be in regard to the planted kernels themselves. And let's see. It is not necessary to inquire about planted kernels except in the case where one harvested the kernels and planted them before the Omer. And the Omer came and passed over them while they were in the ground and before they took root. And Rav Bar Chanan inquired as follows: what is the law with respect to taking the kernels out of the ground before they take root and eating from them? The same kernels that he put in the ground, decided, you know what, I don't want it. I want to take them out and eat the kernels. Look at number 13. It says, however, if they took root after the Omer, but before he removed them from the ground, then even if the Omer did permit the kernels, they might still become forbidden again as a result of the new growth that occurred in them after they took root. The Gemara will discuss it on 69. Anyway, the Gemara says, the Gemara explains the two sides of the question. Are they, the planted kernels, viewed as if they are cast into a container? And the Omer therefore permits them for consumption. Look at 14. Since the kernels placed in the ground did not take root, they are perhaps no different from wheat kernels stored in a container. The Omer therefore permits them. Let's look at the next note, 15. Planting them in the ground nullified their status as harvested grain. Suddenly they are no longer harvested grain, they are planted grain. The Omer could not permit them because they are in the ground, even though he later changed his mind and removed them from the ground, as we said, to eat them. They did not revert to the previous status. They are treated like new plants that grew after the Omer. So once they change their status, they don't change back. They don't revert back to their original status, which remain forbidden until the next Omer. Rashi here also keren ora. Let's go back to the Gemara. Are they, the planted kernels, viewed as if they are cast into a container, and the Omer therefore permits them for consumption? Or perhaps he subordinated them to the ground by planting them, and the Omer therefore does not permit them. The legal status of kernels of grain that have been planted but have not yet taken root is relevant to two other areas of law. Rav Chanan's inquiry therefore continues about these. Yesh lein hoino ho'ein lohen oino. Are they, the planted kernels, subject to the laws of price fraud, or are they not subject to the laws of price fraud? So it says in 16, the rules of hona'ah, price fraud, apply only to the purchase and sale of movable property, not real estate. Rava Bar Rav Chanan inquires whether planted wheat kernels are still classified as movable property and are thus subject to the rules of Hino, or whether they have become part of the ground and therefore treated as land, which is not subject to these rules. So how do I categorize them? They are land or they are movable? Yeah. Yes, I know, and then I know. Hey, Chidomi. So the one says, okay, what is the case to which this inquiry is relevant? If you say that the seller said to the buyer, I cast 6 cores, it's an amount of grain, into the field, and I'm selling you that grain. And witnesses came forward and said that he cast only 5 cores of grain into the field. So what happened over here?
Missing one.
Yeah, the seller said to the buyer, I'm putting 6 cores into the field, and I'm selling you that grain. And witnesses came and said, no, he only casted 5 into the field, 5 cores of grain into the field. Rava has said, with anything that is sold according to measure, weight, or number, even when the amount of the fraud is less than the amount of a no, less than 1/6, it is returned, the sale is void. It's a reason to nullify the sale. Okay? So we have a
6.
weight. For example, a guy told you it's 5 pounds and it found out to be 4 pounds. He told you you're getting 100 pieces and you're getting 99 pieces. Or he told you it measured 2 by 2 and he gave you less than 2 by 2.
500 sheets of paper.
Yeah, same idea. Sell is void. Accordingly, if the seller planted less grain than he claimed, the sale is void whether planted grain is treated as movable property or land. Regardless, it's considered as a void sale. So the Gemara gives the case in which the issue of a no would apply. Ela de omarle shadai bo kedevoilo. Rather, the case must be where the seller said to the buyer, I have cast into these fields as much grain as it needs to produce a full yield. He didn't mention amount. He said exactly what it's needed.
That's good.
And now witnesses came and said they did not cast into it as much as it needs.
Shakran.
Right? Since the seller never mentioned, in this case, any specific amount, he said, I put as much as it needed. The transaction is subject to the law of price fraud.
Why? It's one against the other.
Witnesses, it's majority against one.
So the 20 says that.
Right? Yesh no are the planted kernels that have not yet taken root subject to the law of price fraud.
They could just plant it.
Yeah, they have not yet taken root, subject to the law of price fraud. The chaman, the shadio, bechado demayo, because they are viewed as if they are cast into a container. In other words, I don't even treat it as changing of status, of being planted, because they didn't take root yet. Once they take root, they say the status has changed. Hence, they are considered movable property and are subject to the law of price fraud. Oy dilma, batilu legabe, or perhaps he subordinated them to the ground, meaning I'm not treating it as a container, putting it in a container by planting them. Hence, they are considered part of the land and are not subject to the law of price fraud. Rav Bar Chana, third inquiry concerning the status of planted kernels. Nishboin alein or ein nishboin alein. Does one take an oath concerning them or does not take an oath concerning them? Are they viewed as if they are cast into a container and therefore treated as movable property? And if they are movable property in Ishboin Alem, one takes an oath, for movable property, or perhaps they are nullified to the land, to the ground. He subordinated them to the ground by planting them, and they are therefore like land. And one does not take an oath concerning them.
What should be a difference between?
So 1 second. So the Gemara answers in regard to all the three of Rav Bar Chana's question. Teiku, let it stand. Let the question remains. So regarding your question, why
should be a difference between
the Torah?
If it's a fraud, it's a fraud.
No, the Torah differentiates. It comes to the law. For movable property, it's one. It goes under one category, and land has another category. Because the laws of land has also a concept of chazaka. Someone was in the land for a certain amount of time. No one said anything, so we assume that it's his. There's different laws that go. I don't want to go into it now, but there's completely different laws when it comes to land and property than to movable objects. It's called metaltelin. Movable property is called metaltelin, and then you have mekarkae. You have the laws of land. One of the major differences is that when it comes to movable property, someone can do what is called meshicha. You pull it into your possession. Like he doesn't. If I ask you for a certificate that you bought the watch, maybe it's not. You can't produce it. Where's your receipt? Maybe it's mine. But the fact that you're wearing it, and I'm not wearing it, it is already. It's established that it's yours. And if you want to take it from me, if I want to take it from you, I have to produce a proof. Why shouldn't you produce the proof that you own it? Because you're holding it, because it's on you. Therefore I have to produce. If you want to take one out of me, you have to bring proof, not me, right? But the laws of land are more difficult, because how do you hold the land? You can't hold the land. Yeah. So obviously, because of the physical aspect of it, that it's different, right? The elements are different, so it's completely different, but it's really not related to our subject so much.
1 out of 6, you said that it's not.
Right, so
it to be fraud or not fraud.
Right, so the Gemara mentioned that if, for example, someone made a mistake. Because those days it wasn't considered an amount. Like if somebody by mistake paid you a penny less, would you make? You wouldn't even bother to call. There's a certain amount. Yeah, it's nullified. It has no chashivut, no importance. That's why it says that if you want to get married, you have to give a woman at least shaveh puta. Shaveh puta, it has to have some kind of value, a minimal value. If it's less than the minimal value, then you didn't buy, so to speak, you didn't inquire the wife, you didn't go into this marriage with anything, you didn't give anything for this bond. Anyway, Bai Rama Bar Chama, Chitin shebeglelei boko, wheat kernels found in the droppings of cattle. So they ate the wheat, and then ultimately it was dissected and digested, and then in their droppings there was a lot of kernels in their droppings. Or seorin shebiglalei bema, or barley kernels found in the droppings of the livestock. Now, what is their law? How do I treat it? Is chadash? It's considered chadash. It's considered yashan. To what crop is it belong to? If you look at 23, it says wheat kernels and barley kernels occasionally emerge from an animal undigested, right? Rami Bar Chama inquires as to their legal status. The examples of wheat for cattle and barley for other livestock are based on common practice. Cattle are fed wheat, while other livestock, especially camels and donkeys, are generally fed barley. Okay? So I think it's probably because we consume the cattle, cows and oxen we eat, so they fed them wheat, would make them bigger, makes them fatter. When it comes to other animals, they gave them barley. So he wants to know, what is the story with these, the soirin, with these grains? So the Gemara clarifies the question. The Gemara says, "Lamai," in regard to what area? regard what area of law does Rami Bar Chama pose this question? If you say it is in regards to becoming contaminated with kernels of foods, Tanina, we have learned the status in the following Baita. Chitin shebeglalei bakar usaurin shebeglalei behema. Wheat kernels that are found in the droppings of cattle, and barley kernels found in the droppings of livestock. If, while they're still among the droppings, one intended to use them for human consumption, they do not become contaminated with the tumah of foods. However, if one collected them from among the droppings for human consumption, they can become contaminated with the tumah of foods. Since the Braita teaches the tumah rule for such kernels, Rami Bar Chama could not have been inquiring about it. Again, since the Braita teaches the tumah rule of such kernels, so definitely Rami Bar Chama is not concerned with the tumah. He is concerned with the Omar. The Gemara considers and rejects another explanation. Ela lemenachos. Rather, if you will say that the inquiry was in regards to menachos, the suitability of such grain for use in mincha offering. He says, can you use a grain that was found in animals' droppings for mincha offering? You clean it up, obviously, and then you grind it and you use it for mincha, for offering, for flour. If it's good for consumption of human beings, why not? Yeah. But this cannot be. Pshita deloy, because it is obvious that it cannot be so used. The scripture states, present it if you please to your governor. Would he be pleased with you or show you favor? We know regarding the offering of Cain that Hashem was not did not accept his offering because he didn't use the best of his crop. We learned from this that any offering would not have been considered respectful as a gift to a human ruler is unacceptable to the altar. If you cannot give it to your king, to your governor, don't give it to Hashem. A mincha made from grain collected from animal droppings surely is not acceptable.
What do you mean by animal dropping? הצרכים שלהם?
Yeah.
אבל איך, what do they drop, wheat? No.
So if they consumed wheat and it was not digested, it just comes out.
Only if it's not digested.
Yeah, of course.
But many times if you see the cow's thing, it's there. It's mixed.
Yeah, they swallow it and they don't eat.
So they don't digest it.
You can put in the water and offer it. Like a gift. That's for you.
Yeah.
Well,
A neighbor of mine, the dog swallowed a piece of corn, and they had to do surgery to get it out.
But it is very logical that you don't give an offering like that to God.
That's what they were saying.
It's very logical. It's not even an issue.
It's an easy kal v'chomer.
Yeah.
It's an easy one, but so they're trying to figure out what was the inquiry of Rami Bar Chama when he said a grain from animal droppings, what should we do with it? How should we treat it? So the Gemara is dissecting. He said, well, his question is not this, and his question is not that. His question cannot be applying for bringing it as a mincha, because obviously it doesn't make sense. You wouldn't bring it to your governor. You wouldn't bring this offering. But what I'm taking from it, I mean, think about this pasuk, this verse. It's a verse in Malachi. The prophet, it says in number 28, you can look, it says the prophet speaking about chastises, or basically reproofing the people of Israel, for treating the service of Hashem lightly. You're present on my altar, loathsome food, and you say, how have we loathed you? In other words, he's saying to Hashem, he's saying to the people, if you want to come and present something before Hashem, you have to, at least it has to pass the test of serving it into a governor. Would you feel comfortable giving it to the same thing? I'm thinking of it in terms of prayer. What is prayer? Is beseeching to God for all of our needs. So if someone, you can use the same test. If you would stand now in front of Rick Scott, the governor of Florida, or you stand before a judge and you plead your case, would you plead your case the same way you just prayed this morning? Would you explain it better? Would you say it better? Would you be more clear about it?
So why some people come here with the...
But a lot of people don't think about these things.
But Rabbi, why some people come here with the Chanel?
With slippers?
Yeah.
There's some say, look, it's my father, so I'm supposed to feel at home. I'm supposed to feel comfortable. There's different ways of looking at it. Like your son, if he walks in front of you with slippers, you wouldn't have a problem. Sandals, right? You'll be okay. No, but you are his father. God is also our father. It's not. It says im kebanim, im kavadim. Right? We said in the prayer, im kebanim. If we are like sons to God, not like we are the sons of God. Right? Hashem created us 3 partners to a man. Hashem, your father, and your mother. So He's there. He's your father. So you should feel comfortable with your father. It's not that, if you have a crease on your shirt, He's not going to accept your prayer. He loves you and He'll accept your prayer. But obviously, the more you prepare yourself for prayer, the more thought you give to it, the more it's obviously better. But to negate the others, I wouldn't say that the others are not good.
You're using this logic.
I'm using this logic also I'm using it not just for the dress code. I'm using it also for the way you pray. We make an argument, right? We offer something to God. We don't have the offering, so today we offer our lips. You can make an argument. A lawyer that gets paid $1,000 an hour doesn't make the same argument as a lawyer that gets paid $100 an hour, right? There's more preparation, there's more elaborations, and there's more. The presentation is going to be much more expensive. Not just money, also expensive in the way it's delivered, right? Because he's not charging $1,000 because of that he likes to. He charges because he knows that's what he's worth, right? So when we come to Hashem, we gotta give our best shot, right? Every prayer is a chance to change everything that needs to be changed.
You're gonna dress like this in front of Trump?
No, I'm not. I'm saying 100%. 100%. It applies also to the dress code and to everything that has to do. But for me, the way I see it is because it says in the Shalma Parim Sfatenu, we come to God, we substitute the offerings with our lips. So I'm talking about the prayer itself. There's one guy that's come all dressed up with a suit and tie, and he's gonna mumble a few words and he's gonna walk out. Other guy's gonna come with his bathing suit, but he's gonna say every word. So who is God is going to listen to? But I'm not taking away from the guy who came with the suit. It's beautiful that he's respecting the Shabbat, he's respecting the synagogue, and he's giving it more of attention.
Ways, yeah. Well,
So
there are lots about the rest. Right. For instance, on Shabbat, I see a lot of people come with jeans and sneakers, and I get shocked because on Shabbat you're supposed to dress really nice and different than during the week.
You're right. Halacha says that you should have a specific clothes for Shabbat. Yeah. Our custom is to wear white shirt, but you should have a special shoes for Shabbat. You shouldn't go out now and spend money if people don't have it. But if you have in your closet, you have some clothing that you can designate for Shabbat. You say this is going to be the clothing for Shabbat, and also you're going to fill Shabbat every time you wear it. But we're running away from the issue, the subject. Lo tzricha denaktinu uzar'inu ra'im barachama. Inquiry is necessary only in a case where one collected the kernels from the droppings of the animals and then planted them. Okay? So he sifted through the waste of the animal and he took the kernels, planted them in the ground. Okay? Now it grew. Is new grain, new wheat. He cut it, and he wants to bring menacha from this. That's a question. Now it becomes a valid question, right? What is the law? What would be the law in this case? It was recycled grain. Recycled grain, can I plant it? And what did you say?
Flowers? What's a cardinal?
Kernels.
Flowers.
Yeah. It's kernels is like the grain itself, like the grain. Once it starts to grow, it's called the kernels.
So it is like the grain itself, basically. It's not flour.
The question is, are you allowed to use it as mincha offering or not? That's a question. If it was recycled grain that was planted, so the Gemara says, Mishum de mirsusayu, it is due to repulsiveness that grain found in animal droppings is not considered food. Maus, it's considered repulsive. It's something that went through this this process is considered repulsive. Now, once he planted them, the repulsiveness is gone. Now we don't think of it as repulsive anymore. And the grain that grows from them should be permitted to use as mincha, in a mincha as well, in a mincha offering. O dilma, or we can argue, mishum kechishusahu, or perhaps the reason grain found in animal droppings is not considered a food is due to its degraded quality. The results of its having passed through the animal's digestive tract, it shows that it wasn't of a good quality. That's why the animal did not digest it. If it was good quality, the animal will digest it. It becomes part of the blood. The body only gets rid of the waste, of something that is not of good quality.
It's trash.
And therefore now too, the grain that grows from those kernels is of degraded quality.
I agree.
And therefore I should not offer it as mincha. So I have two ways of looking at it. One way I say, it's ma'us, it's repulsive, and therefore I should not offer it as is. But once it went through the process of planting and it grew again, then it's not anymore repulsive. Therefore it should be good for mincha. Or I can make another argument. The reason why it came out of the animal, because it was not good quality to begin with. So the fact that I planted it grew again, it's still of a degraded quality. It's still not a good quality, and therefore I shouldn't offer it as a mincha. So I have two ways of analyzing this question, and obviously it's such a good question, there is no answer to it. The question remains unresolved. We know that the passing of, when Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, they forgot 30,000 halachot. They forgot, due to his passing. And all these halachot will ultimately be revealed in the time of Mashiach.
Well, it seems like it's degraded in quality only on the exterior, and if you're going to consume it, it's as it is. But once it sprouts in these roots, then it's what's inside, the DNA that's in there is what's coming out. Now, was the exterior, droppings affecting the makeup of what it is that's then giving new life?
It's actually showing that internally it's inferior quality.
Because the animal doesn't take
the animal could not digest it.
That makes more sense.
It shows internally that it was
The quality of it.
that it was inferior quality.
Well, even though it might have just couldn't have been that he just didn't chew it versus just swallow it.
Have to go to make some money.
Yalla.
All the best.
Thank you.
Well, that's great.
Boy, Ram Bar Chama inquired, Pil shebola kefifa mitzvahs, if an elephant swallowed a palm fiber basket. Palm fiber basket.
It's a plant, yeah.
So it says in 33, the word Pil shebola kefifa mitzvahs, it says the word mitzris in this context means something made of tzurei hadekel, the fibrous substance that grows at the base of a palm tree. Maybe it's hearts of palm. But anyway, so an elephant swallowed it, but he swallowed the basket. Ve'ikio derech beisari, and he expelled it by way of its rectum. Mao, what is the law? So went in, went out, and what is the law regarding to it? Regarding to this palm fiber basket. So the Gemara says, in regard to what area of law did Ram Bar Chama pose this question? If you say that he's concerned with the purity or impurity of this basket, Tanina, we have learned the law in the following Mishnah. This is a kli, it's a basket. A basket, it's a utensil, a vessel. All utensils descend to their tuma through thought. What does it mean through thought? Look at 36. It says a utensil is not susceptible to tuma, to impurity, until it has been fully fashioned into its complete form. If it's in the process, you're making the kli, but you didn't make it yet, so it doesn't even have a designated use. It's not susceptible to tumah. But once it's a kli, then it's susceptible to tumah. If it has not yet reached its final form, it cannot contract tumah, even if it is usable in its uncompleted form.
But this basket was ready.
The basket was ready. So he says over here, so descend to Tuma through thought, I guess through the designation. But they do not emerge from the Tuma except through physical change. Let's see, 37. Once a utensil becomes tameh, it cannot lose its Tuma simply through thought. By deciding to transform it into a utensil requiring further work. By deciding to transform it into a utensil requiring further work, only a physical change to the utensil, such as breaking it, can undo its status as a utensil and render it tahor, pure. So to bring it into Tumah, you can do it with machshava, through thought, through the decision to use it as is, and to get it out of it, you got to break it or do a change to it. Now, since the basket was expelled,
I didn't understand the first process. Through thought, you can turn it tameh?
Right, so look at 36, in the middle of it, you see through thought in parentheses. It says a few words before, one decides to use it for a purpose for which its present form suffices. Without any further crafting, the utensil becomes immediately susceptible to tumah through thought. So in other words, let's say I made this cup. Okay, I'm making this cup. And in the process of making this cup, I stopped in the middle. And I say to myself, I'm going to use this cup to hold water, to hold liquids. That's the designation of this cup. The moment I had this in mind, this is what I'm going to use it for, and I can use it as a cup, because it can contain, if maybe not 8 ounces, but it contains 6 ounces, it's already susceptible to tumah. So if something tameh will touch it, it becomes impure. Okay, so now it became tameh, and I want to change it not to be tameh. So I said I can do it by, I'm now undesignating it from being a cup to be something else. To be let's say a pen holder, and put all the pens in there. It says no, it's not going to do it. You have to break it or change its use, physically change its use.
Could you just add to it instead of breaking? Like finish what you originally maybe were going to do, and then that changes?
It has to have a physical change in the...
Maybe to finish, yes.
Some vessels can only be broken, like clay vessels, in order to extract the tumor out of them. What?
That's deep,
Yeah, because clay vessels, they absorb, but they only suck in, but they don't give out. It's very hard to get anything out of them. So in the laws of kashrus, if, for example, you have a pot that you cooked something not kosher, and you want to use it now for kosher use, and you want it to be kosher, you have to do agala. It's to put it in hot water. There's a process of purifying it and cleaning it. But it's clay, you cannot do anything with it. But that's the reason why, because it absorbs and it doesn't give out.
We are like clay, right? People are us as vessels.
No, we shouldn't be that way. We should absorb and we should all give out.
Be able to
If you only collect information but you don't give it out, it's not good.
It's bad.
And you need to be broken.
Yeah.
You need to someone has to break you. God forbid. It says in Tanya, in chapter 29, the Alter Rebbe says over there that if the log of wood, if it's a big piece of wood, you're going to try to make barbecue with it, it's not going to catch fire. It's too big to catch fire, but once it's little, it can catch fire. So someone make himself big is not giving anything. He's unable to take anything in or out. In order to be able to take in and to give, we have to lower ourselves. That goes back to the concept of bitul, of nullification, and how do we get there. One of the things is through humility, through contemplation. So the Gemara explains the case to which Ram Bar Chama inquires applies. Ram Bar Chama's inquiry is needed only for the case where the elephant swallowed palm fiber, which emerged intact from its digestive tract, and he then made them into a palm fiber basket. So he transformed it to a basket. Although it went through the digestive of the elephant, but he took it out and he made a basket out of it. The Gemara presents the two sides of the inquiry. Mi equal is the passage through the animal digestive tract considered digestion? Havele, and the basket is therefore kichli gelolim, kichlei adoma, kichlei gelolim, kichlei adoma, like utensils made of dung and like utensils made of mud, ve'in mekablim tuma, which are not susceptible to tuma. The Omar, for the master has stated in a Braita, klei avonim, utensils of stone, uchlei gelolim, utensils made of dung.
What is dung?
It's droppings.
The droppings of the animal. Uchlei adoma, and utensils made of unbaked clay, ein mekablim tuma. So if it's baked clay, it's mekabel tuma. If it's unbaked, is not susceptible to impurity. Okay, only if it's baked. How do you make clay? You throw it in an oven for many hours, right? And very high temperature. Neither biblically nor rabbinically. Hence, if the palm fiber that passed through the animal is considered digested, a basket made of it would be considered dungware and would not be susceptible to tumah.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
You're just reading here, and it's in there.
Yeah.
Wasn't cooked,
nothing is not adding my words, right? You said Torah direct. Direct. Right? Or perhaps since the fiber passed through the animal intact, because the whole thing came out. It wasn't digested. It is not considered digested. A basket made of this fiber is no different from any other palm fiber basket and is susceptible to tumor. You cannot call it dungware because it was never digested. Came in, came out. It didn't change its status. And therefore, it should be susceptible to tumor.
We're going back to some gray areas over here.
Why?
The kernel, if it
Why?
wasn't
I didn't
digested, how do you
understand.
know
I'm
if it was
sorry.
digested or not digested?
I didn't understand.
Oh, if it was digested, you wouldn't see it as a kernel. That's for sure. As a grain, you wouldn't see it as a grain.
So if it
The only
came out-
reason why you're able to see it because it was not digested.
Yeah. Maybe he just swallowed without chewing.
He didn't. No, but we can't say it with animals because they chew the cud. They bring it back up and they chew it and they do it back and forth, back and forth. There's no way.
Elephants, so that's the difference.
No, with the elephant, it's dealing with a basket. It's dealing with the laws of susceptibility to tumor or not. It's not dealing with the issue of the omer
This palm fiber,
or mincha.
it's susceptible to tumor. Why?
It's a kli, like
But it's not
anything.
ready.
Any. Why is it not ready?
How do we know it's ready?
Because we said the elephant swallowed it and he gave it out.
The same way it came in.
The same way it
out.
came out. He did not digest it.
Okay.
So
it's
that-
susceptible to
Because even in a case where he digested it and it came out, right? That was the scenario we mentioned before. What type of category am I giving it? So if he digested it completely and a guy took out and made the basket out of it, then there's no question. It's a basket. In one way, you can look at it as a basket, or you can say that since it's made out of the dung, then therefore it's not considered. It should not be susceptible to
if you
tumor.
have to take out
Because we made a
the
rule that everything that comes from stones or from dung, right? They're not susceptible to tumor. Klei avonim, klei glolim, klei adomo, and you
I
tend.
understand. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Because it's not dung. That's the point. Yeah. It's not dung. It's the basket. It's still a basket, so it's susceptible to tumor.
It's the same basket when
Okay,
it came
okay,
came
gotcha,
out.
gotcha. Thank you.
So, Tifshut Lemeha, the Gemara attempts to resolve this question from the ruling in Tractate of Ta'anit, the tractate that deals with the laws of fasting. Ta'anit. Tifshut Lemeha, the Omar Ula Mishum Rabbi Shimon Bar Yehoy Tzadok. Let resolve the question from which Ula related in the name of Rabbi Shimon Ben Yehoy Tzadok. Ma'asu v'olu zev im shnei tinokot be'ever hayarden. It once happened that wolves swallowed 2 infants in the Transjordan, Ever Hayarden, and their bodies were later excreted by the wolves.
Wow.
Okay? It says in number 6 that the bodies were swallowed and later excreted whole. Okay, maybe very little babies, and the wolves were big. Uvo ma'aseh lifnei chachamim. And the matter came before the sages, v'tia'u et haboso, and they declared the flesh of the infant tohor. They said it was a pure flesh. We see from this that whatever passes through an animal digestive tract is legally deemed dung, and therefore they consider that tohor. It says in number 7, they ruled that it does not transmit human corpse tumor. Usually, human corpse, they contract, they transmit tumor, impurity. Although the corpse of these infants surely transmitted corpse tumor, when they were killed, the sages ruled that once they had passed through the digestive system of the wolves, the flesh no longer transmitted tumor. Clearly, this was because it had legally become dung, and so was no longer considered human flesh.
But they were perfect.
Right. So that was the opinion of the Chachamim at the time. It doesn't make a difference if it came out whole or not, perfect or not. The fact that it went through the digestive system, it's already considered dung. I don't care. If it made this journey, we're calling it what it is, and that's it. The Gemara says, Shani bos uderakich, flesh is different in that it is soft. Hence, its passage through the animal's digestive system qualifies it as dung. Palm fiber, however, on the other hand, is a tougher substance.
Doesn't change.
It's tougher. It is perhaps not deemed dung by its mere passage through the animal. Maybe I should give it a different category.
What about unbaked clay? Is it soft or hard?
Sand.
Yeah,
It's usually
yeah, you're right. It's sand. It's very, very soft.
It's like
Pottery.
tennis courts. Like tennis courts. It's clay.
The Gemara presents a second proof from that incident. V'lifshut miseifa, let us resolve the question from the latter part of that ruling, which states, V'timus ha'atzomus, and they declared the bones tomeh. We should conclude, let's see number 9, what is it referring to? The sages did not consider the bones to have become legally digested and classified as dung. Rather, they retained their status as the bones of a human corpse and therefore continued to transmit tumah. It is evident from this that the hard parts of a corpse are not classified as dung when they pass through the animal undigested. So that's a good proof to say that the basket, if it came out undigested, it should be susceptible to tumah. We should conclude from this that since the fiber, the palm fiber, is tough, it does not legally become dung by passing intact through an animal's digestive tract. The Gemara says, "Shani atzomus dakushit tvei." It said bones are tougher than the palm fiber basket. Bones are different in that they are very hard. Hence, the passage through the animal's digestive system does not deem them dung. Palm fiber is not as hard. Ryan Bar Chama's question can therefore not be resolved from the rulings of the sages in that case. So it's still a question. Question remains. Boy Rabbi Zero chitin shiodu be'ovim, wheat kernels that descended from the clouds along with the rain. Mao. Look at number 12. As the clouds took up water over the ocean, they swept up a ship full of wheat. When they passed over land, the airborne wheat fell to the ground together with the rain. Possibly Rashi is describing the action of water spout, a tornado over water, in which a large amount of water are sucked from the sea into the clouds. As with a tornado, the suction inside the funnel of the storm is sufficient to pull even large and heavy objects high into the air. So what happened in this case, where wheat kernels were sucked from one area, from a boat, the example that they mention here, and they descended from the clouds along with the rain. What is their law? The Gemara clarifies the inquiry. Lamai, in regards to what law did Rabbi Zera pose this inquiry? If in regards to ordinary mincha offering, amai lo, why shouldn't you use it for mincha? This grain that came from heaven. Ela l'shtei alechem, rather the inquiry must be in regard to their use in the shtei alechem. For Shavuos, the 2 loaves of bread brought on Shavuos. What is their status? The Gemara explains the 2 sides of the questions. The merciful one stated in his Torah that the shtei alechem should be brought from your dwelling places. And it's not from your dwelling place, it's not from the land of Israel, it's from some boat in the ocean. Tornado sucked it in, picked it up, and dropped it off. The issue is not that it's yours, because if it came into your yard, it's yours. You own it now.
Okay.
It's like you're finding $100 in the street. It's not yours, it's yours. But it says, from your land. It's not from the land of Israel. It could be, it came from Babylonia.
Okay.
Did he mean to exclude by this, when the Torah said, did he mean to exclude by this just wheat from the outside the land? Deloy to teach that it cannot be for the Shtei HaLechem offering. Aval de'ovim shapir dami, but wheat that dropped from the clouds is fine and may be used for Shtei HaLechem. The phrase from your dwelling places is meant literally. Va'afilu de'ovim namiloi. So whether you're excluding anything that comes from the clouds, or you said it has to be growing in your land. Va'afilu de'ovim namiloi, and even wheat that dropped from the clouds may also not be used for the Shtei HaLechem. So that's the two sides of the debate. What is Mimoy Shvoi Seichem means? Does it have to be literally from your land? If it came from the sky, it shouldn't be okay. Or I should consider also what comes from the sky. The bottom line, it's from my land right now.
So with wheat, it seems like you have to plant the specific one because there's so many individual ones. But like a fruit, for example, like a tree, if a bird goes over here and eats something, and then he drops the seed, and then it grows into a tree, and now you have all this fruit from the tree that was grown from the dropping of the bird that was digested.
Right.
So would that make it like not be able to use the fruits?
But we did not conclude that we are unable to use it. There was a debate whether it's considered repulsive if the issue is repulsiveness, and it's not repulsive anymore because it went through the planting process, it was planted and grew, or that I still have an issue with it because it's inferior quality. Remember that debate, but there was no conclusion to that debate. The issue that you would face with a new tree, that you have to wait 3 years. The laws of Orla, that you have to wait 3 years to eat the fruits, and then the first fruits that will grow. In the 4th year and the 5th year, you have to bring them to the temple. These laws applies to Israel biblically, and to the diaspora rabbinically. So nowadays, when the temple is destroyed, we are allowed to eat the fruits of the 4th year, but the first 3 years we are not allowed to eat the fruits. But that's another issue. But things that are concealed from your eyes, you don't have to be concerned with. If you see in your backyard a mango tree growing, it doesn't mean, you don't have to think, oh, it's maybe came from droppings, or maybe came from someone planted it intentionally, or something fell from the tree. You have a tree, if it's a new tree, you're waiting 3 years, and 4th year you're allowed to eat it. And obviously you're allowed to bring it as an offering. So the Gemara says, I have two ways of interpreting the word Mimoshvi Seichem. Either it just comes to exclude Chutz La'aretz, outside of Israel, that it should come from the land of Israel. And in this case, it does not exclude anything that comes from the heavens. But, I can interpret Mimoshvi Seichem that it's excluding everything. Just it has to be from Israel. Even if it comes from the clouds, it should be excluded. The Gemara says on the right column on top, does anything of this kind ever happen that we should have inquire as its law? Why should we be concerned with a tornado that will come and pick up grain and drop it? It's possible for it to take place. This type of incident, the Gemara says it actually did happen. Ein, yes. Tayo Bar Adi. It once happened to Bar Adi, the Arab. Nechisa leirum kizbo chiti b'sosa parse. That there came down for him from the clouds a layer of wheat, a kizba, a high over an area of 3 parsos long. It was packed. Yeah, three parsos, a long distance, was full of this chite of wheat that came down. Look at number 18. That is along the full length of his holdings, which were 3 parsos, 12 mil long. The Gemara returns to the topic, going back to the Gemara returns to the topic of the Omer and presents another inquiry concerning what it can permit. Boy Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi inquired, Shiboiles she'evio shlish koidem lo'imer. An ear of grain that reached a third of its size before the Omer was offered.
It was big, yeah?
Yeah, it was already, a third of its size was already grown. Ve'akoro, and one uprooted it before the Omer. Ushetolo la'achar Omer, and then replanted it after the Omer. So it grew up, let's say it's full size, it's 10 feet, and grew 3 feet, right? Third of its size. He cut it and then replanted it after the Omer. Waited till the Omer and then planted it again. And it increased in size. Now it's getting bigger. What is the law? Can it be eaten before the next year Omer? 22. Look at 22, the notes. Since the uprooted stalk had reached the 1/3 stage before the Omer, it became permitted by the Omer, like any harvested grain. However, what grows from it as a result of replanting the ear after the Omer, the increase is not necessarily permitted, for it may possibly be treated as the product of new post-Omer planting.
So change the status.
Right? So by 1 second. So by Rabbi Shimon Pazi Shibod Shivir Shishkolma VaKor Ushtor LaAchar Omer. Then he replanted it after the Omer V'Sifro, and then it increased. Now Bosar Ikar Azlinan. We go after the root, the replanted ear of grain, and classify the new growth as part of that ear. V'Shar Omer, which the Omer that passed permitted it. Or Bosar Teisefes Azlinan. Or we follow the increase, which grows after the Omer was offered, and it has, therefore we should wait till the next Omer. So again, we have two ways of looking at it. Since the third was already grown before the Omer, so it said the Omer already, and it was already harvested, so the Omer should permit it. And once he replanted it again, we're considering it as all the stalk that was planted. So the new growth will be treated as old. Or I should say no, that part was permitted, but the growth that is growing now, that only growing after the Omer was done, and therefore it should be treated as a new.
Would you separate it, like the first 3 feet?
That's what the debate. Should we separate it, or should we consider the new growth as something that is permitted, or something that we have to wait for the Omer again to come? So the Gemara says, if a young tree that was subject to the law of Orla, meaning it's a young tree, it's not yet 3 years old, had fruit on it. So if young tree that was subject to the law of Orla was grafted onto an old tree, uva peros, the young tree had fruit on it at the time. Also. So a grafting is a process that they do a lot of times. They take a young tree, they take a piece of the trunk from an old tree, and they connect them together. And now they are bringing new fruits. So the old tree is older than 3 years old, so it's not Ola. The young tree is Ola. But now the young tree is connected to the old tree and is bringing fruit. Am I considering the fruits of the young tree that is connected to the old Ola or not?
I love this so much.
It will be take again.
I don't know. Let's see. Yalda a young tree that was subject to the law of Ola was grafted onto an old tree, and the young tree had fruit on it at the time. Also, even if the fruit increased 200-fold after the grafting, it is forbidden. So he's dealing with fruits that was already on the young tree before the grafting. And now it says even if it added 200 times, it is forbidden. If you look at 26, it says, the fruit on the young tree was forbidden as Ola. Although Ola becomes nullified in a mixture of 200 parts to one. So if you have a big basket full of apples, and let's say you have 200 apples, and one apple of Ola fell into this basket. Now you don't know which one is the Ola apple. What, do you have to throw the whole thing, or you're allowed to eat it? So it says, when it comes to the laws of Ola, we do 1 to 200. In order for it to be nullified, the Ola apple to be nullified, it has to have 200 times this Ola. So maybe we should use the same law in the tree. If the tree had a little bit of fruits, but now it growed now there's so much more fruits on the tree as a result of being grafted to the old tree. Is it nullified or not? The Gemara says, also, even if the fruit increased 200-fold after the grafting, it is forbidden. We see from this that regardless of the amount of new growth, the enlarged fruit retains the status of the original fruit from which it grew. If an onion was planted in a vineyard and became forbidden as kilaim, so what is kilaim? Kilaim is the mixture of two seeds. For example, if you take a seed of cucumber and tomato, put them together, that's kilaim. Or also if you plant under a tree. So if you're planting, there's a tree, and underneath it you're planting, that's also kilaim. It says in 27, various kinds of foreign species planted in a vineyard become forbidden as kilei akerem, the forbidden mixture of vineyard. So you're planting under the vineyard vegetables. So they are called kilei akerem.
The case of kilaim of the trees, because the roots gonna
maybe, yeah, the roots maybe will mess with it. But over here it says, if an onion was planted in a vineyard and became forbidden as kilaim, the onion is forbidden. V'nekar akerem, but then you remove the vineyards, so now there's only onions. And the vineyard was then uprooted, and the onion continued to grow. Even if it increased by 200 folds, you say this is not any more kilaim, there's 200 times more over the size it had been when the vineyard was uprooted. Also, the onion is nevertheless forbidden as kilei akerem, because there was a vineyard there before, it's still forbidden. Here too, we see that the enlarged fruit retains the status of the original fruit from which it grew, no matter how much new growth occurs. The Gemara says, the Gemara rejects the proof from these two rulings. He gufa kami bayale. It is about this matter itself, that he is inquiring. These very rulings were the subject of his question. Mifshat peshitalu l'rabbanon. It is absolutely clear to these rabbis, devosar ikar azlinan, that we go after the root in deciding a fruit's status. Lo yishno lekulo v'lo yishno lechumra. No matter whether this results in a leniency or a stringency, we're following the roots. Or dilma sapukim esapkalo. Or perhaps the rabbis were in doubt about going after the root. Ulechumra amrinan, therefore, it is only as a stringency that we say this rule that we will follow the roots. Lekula lo amrinan, but where it results in a leniency, we do not say that a fruit's legal status goes after its root. The Gemara concludes, Teiku, let the question stand unresolved. And the last part for today, Boy Rava inquired Le'inyan Maiser Mai, in regards to Maiser, what is the law? Do we go after the root or not? The Gemara elaborates, what do you mean? Eichidami kegoin, in a case, Damdinu v'asrinu v'shatlinu v'isifalu, where he estimated the ears of grain that he harvested and tithed them, and then replanted them, v'isifalu, and they increased in size. Rava's question is as follows: Im timtzaleima azlin lo yazlin basarika v'sevet ba'isur mai. If you conclude and say, in regards to Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi's inquiry, that we do not go after the root, when doing so results in a leniency, and the increase therefore requires tithing. What about the root itself? Does it need to be retithed or not? So if to give Maiser, or you don't have to give Maiser, we'll discuss this subject tomorrow, God willing.